You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Naito, David Neese. Even though we came up with a new name for Dave, which we'll discuss later on the show. How you guys feeling today?
Feeling good. Feeling better than what David's going to feel like when we release this new nickname.
I'm doing great, man. I'm waiting for the schedule releases. I'm happy that they play on Thanksgiving. A lot of people aren't, but it gives me an excuse to kick the hell everybody out of my house. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Get out!
Hosting this year just because of that game. I do have a question for you guys, right? And obviously, it's been a very entertaining offseason thus far because the headlines have been dominated by one story. That's it. Has it ruined a bit of the excitement for a schedule release, for draft picks, like for free agent? Like, has this kind of tarnished it, like the whole AJ Brown, Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel issue?
I don't think so. I mean, I kind of not really paying much attention to that whole debacle with Vrabel and Rossini. I just think we're in a lull now, you know, like after the schedule release on Thursday, you kind of look around like, well, now what? You know, we're going to wait a handful of weeks for training camp to start. There's really nothing going on. There's not really many big moves to be made as of right now. So I don't think it took away from it. I think everybody's just kind of expecting it. And I think it's just still a little too early to like really get the gears going and like, hey, like football season's here. But once training camp is around the corner, I think the excitement will certainly pick up.
Yeah, I agree with Corey. I don't think it's done much. If anything, it's made me less engaged, quite frankly, because I just didn't want to see all of that. I don't want to listen to fans constantly complain about it. And half the fan base loves moving on from him. Half of them hate his guts. Half of them love him. And I could care less about what Vrabel or Diana are doing. So none of that really interested me. So I'll be happy when we have something else to talk about.
Then maybe it's just me because my baseball team sucks. I mean, the Phillies suck too this year, right?
They're not on pace to lose 100 games, though. But yeah. I digress.
They will listen.
They might be trading Bichette to the Phillies at this point.
They will rise like a phoenix out of the ashes because of this episode tonight. They're gonna feel motivated. Most likely not. They're god awful. But yeah, I haven't been able to enjoy baseball. But basketball, I feel like I lost my appetite for basketball years back. But Sixers out of it, which leaves us with the Eagles. The Eagles have a bit of an exciting future ahead of them this season. With them most likely moving on from AJ Brown at some point. They had a tremendous draft weekend. Mekhi Lemon, Eli Stowers. I love the offensive lineman that they drafted, even the safety, the Wiz. I think they've had a pretty good free agency as well. And then they traded for Jonathan Grenard, which David called for probably 2 months ahead of time, I want to say. So shout out to David on that one. But nonetheless, I feel like it's kind of created a very mild excitement for this season. Because if you're really tuning into what they've done, they've kind of rebuilt the defense a little bit, but they've overall the offense completely. And this offense specifically has not been built from the ground up by Kevin Patullo, apparently. This one's purely Sean Mannion and Nick Sirianni. But nonetheless, there are several players on this roster right now, and we all chose our select three who we feel like are going to break out this year on offense, on defense. But before we dive into that, over the weekend, it was kind of discussed where Jalen Hurts is being more receptive to what Sean Mannion is bringing to the table. Then you had the Kevin Patullo interview from this morning where he says they've kind of built the organization from the ground up and wiped everything, did their own way kind of thing. He had a big hand in it. How are you guys feeling with all this news just compiling leading into training camp?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of it's just stories to be stories, I mean, I don't know, like I'm glad that Jalen Hurts is apparently more receptive to whatever Sean Mannion is going to do. Does he have a choice? I don't really know. I mean, I know he says he wants the offense to look his way. He's the quarterback, but I mean, this offense needs to change. Over the last couple of years, leagues have caught up to it. The O-line was terrible. We beat that horse dead times 5. Like, we know why they couldn't run the ball. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear about that. Obviously, that's big. Kevin Patullo, I didn't watch the interview or hear it. I can only handle Kevin Patullo speaking to the media in small doses, just trying to listen to what he tried to spew out last year. So, hey, I mean, he's down in Miami. He got another chance. The Dolphins are the Dolphins. I mean, what I don't know if that says anything about Kevin Patullo. I'm not trying to knock the guy, but it just clearly didn't work here.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's more receptive. I think he's always been receptive, but I also think he's smart enough to know when something's not good and that what they were doing last year wasn't productive. And I don't think it takes very many people a lot of time to watch what that product was on the field to realize that he was much deep out of his realm of ability to succeed. And Jalen knew it, the team knew it, AJ Brown knew it. I mean, everybody was tweeting, posting about it except Jalen. And I think because his demeanor is one that is so reserved, that he's an easy target to say these things about because he's not emotional like AJ. He's not going to lash out. So he just accepts it and doesn't really care what anybody says. But I don't really think that he's ever been uncoachable. I think that's a pretty terrible narrative. I mean, the college coaches who I've spoke to that he played for at Alabama and Oklahoma just rave about how coachable he is. And I think Nick Sirianni's basically stated that as well. So I don't really subscribe to the fact that he's, a tough person to play for or coach for.
And it's interesting with when you kind of describe the personalities of AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, right? Because there's a third piece to this mix that has not been spoken about, and I think we could just dive into the breakouts because this guy is actually my main breakout player, Devontae Smith, who has spent apparently the entire offseason alongside Jalen Hurts every step of the way, from working out, from just hanging out, and the two seem very glued to the hip with each other, which I feel like while AJ Brown's departure is dominating the headlines, not too many people are speaking enough about what Devontae Smith is going to be able to do in this new Sean Mannion offense, in this new era of Eagles football, where it's going to be pretty much him and Jalen and Mekhi Lemon and Dontavian Wicks. I strongly believe that Devontae Smith is going to rewrite everything we thought about him as a wide receiver and as a player and as a person. He's grown a lot in Philadelphia. He's matured quite a bit. We've seen him cross 1,000 yards. We've seen him make big plays. But it feels like this is the moment we're actually going to see Devontae Smith actually flourish, because it's going to be about him, and it's going to be about him and Jalen just having that sustainable connection and building on it into hopefully another Super Bowl run. But I weirdly feel like it's Devontae Smith's breakout is going to be one of those things where it's like, wow, like AJ who? And not in a disrespectful way, but it's kind of like, wow, like he really filled AJ's shoes and did much more with the job. So that's my first breakout player. And I'll bring up the graphic. Shout out to to ChatGPT.
You didn't make that?
I mean, I put the players in. And I had to fix Micah Morris because Chat doesn't know Micah Morris is offensive guard. They thought he was defensive tackle. But I put the pictures in. I did all that craftiness. The what?
He looks like a defensive tackle.
Oh, you scared me for a second. Like, what do you mean? But what's it take their next breakout player?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with Jihad Campbell. I'll just kind of go in order for mine. I really like this kid. Being able to speak with him multiple times after games, really good head on his shoulders. Took I don't want to say benching, but essentially the benching when Nakobe Dean came back from injury in stride. I mean, this is a rookie who filled in admirably, filled in very well, made some big plays, made a big play in the season opener against Dallas before the rainstorm hit. He was a front horse to win the Rookie of the Year on the defensive side, through the first month plus of the season. Obviously, he had to take a back seat to Nakobe Dean, and he just handled it with grace. And I think he learned a lot. They had him sandwiched between Nakobe and Zach Bond in the locker room this year for a reason. Him and Zach Bond had a really good relationship together, and I think that's just only going to blossom and grow even stronger. And I just think this kid plays with a lot of physicality. I know they were working with him kind of trying to be an edge rusher. We'll see if that can possibly be an avenue for him. But where he played last year, I mean, linebacker, I just thought it fit him really well. Again, another player just that kind of fell into Howie Roseman's laps, the Eagles' laps. And I think he's going to have a huge sophomore season. I think that he flashed enough. He showed enough moxie, enough football IQ to really show that he can be a guy. He appeared in all 17 games, made 10 starts, had an interception, forced a fumble recovery, ended up having 80 total tackles, a couple of TFLs, a QB hit. Didn't get to the quarterback, but he was able to be disruptive enough to get some pressures. And I know we talked about it, and David especially, that, the defensive pressures is more important than the sacks sometimes when we're talking about pass rushers. So I like Jihad Campbell. I love the pick when they made it. I know that there's a little bit of an injury worry. That's why he slid. I know that they were talking in the offseason that he's kind of working his way back from an injury and might miss the start of training camp, but it doesn't seem like it would be a huge concern. And I just expect big things in 2026 from Jihad Campbell.
Yeah, I like both of y'all's choices. I think both come with injury risk. Like you mentioned, I think a lot of people worry about Jihad because, like you mentioned, he did fall in the draft, and that was basically the only reason. And Devontae Smith, I think people worry, can his body hold up over 17 seasons being wide receiver one, taking the hits? And the theme continues with my first pick. It's Cam Jurgens, who's another guy who is coming back from injury. He continues to grow into a key piece up front. He's not Jason Kelsey. Jason, handpicked him, but his game is very similar, but, he hasn't gotten to that level yet. And he's been, dealing with injuries. He wasn't even supposed to play in the championship game the year they went to the Super Bowl, wasn't supposed to play in the Super Bowl. He was injured. He came into 2025 injured. And this offseason, he went to Mexico to have a experimental surgical procedure, basically some treatment done to, try to get him healthy. And so far, so good with the results, but nothing emulates, like getting hit on a football field will. So, you have to wait because players, no matter what they do, the knee injury, they all have uncertainty until they do it again. But if he is healthy and his athleticism and movement skills up front just open the run game completely, especially when he's climbing to the second level. And he could be a real strength in the middle of this line for a Sean Mannion style offense because they're going to do a lot of outside zone runs. And this offense is going to lean more into his athleticism than Stoutland did in the past. The more valuable he becomes as his athleticism is utilized more because speed is his game, much like it was for Kelsey. And I believe the running game could be elevated back to an elite level like it was in 2024 with Cam plowing the way down the field. But the key to him, like I mentioned with the other two thus far, is health. And if that treatment works for him, I think he's the type of center/guard kind of guy that they want. They want these big, towering hawks on the outside at tackle. But I do think moving forward, you'll probably see less of like a Landon Dickerson Mauler style guard. I think they want guys who can be more mobile and get to the outside.
So it's funny that you talked about the offensive line, right? Because my next guy is only going to benefit from a healthy offensive line, and that's going to be Tank Bigsby. And although Tank Bigsby is not the RB1 of the team, obviously that belongs to Saquon Barkley. I feel like he's going to be the guy that the Eagles need to squeeze as much juice out of so they can retain more juice in Saquon for the long haul. Saquon finished last year with 1,140 rushing yards. And Tank actually finished with 344 with the Eagles, 356 total. But his yards before contact, I feel like were the key factors why he was so successful and why he became a fan favorite. 182 yards before contact. But it was just the way he made things happen in a very stale very stale offense. And I feel like going into the season, being the for sure RB2, because I don't see anybody else really pushing him at that position. While Will Shipley has been there, I don't think Will Shipley's in a position to outshine Tank Bigsby unless there's an injury, which knock on wood, nothing happens. But I'm curious to see what Bigsby does in a full season under this new offense, and a full season, having a full season and off season with Jalen Hurts and this offense, because you can have it's kind of like thunder and lightning, but they're both lightning, if that makes any sense. Because Saquon, in a blink of eye, he could just leave anybody in the dust, and I feel like Bigsby brings that as well, and he's nasty in open field, and he's gonna be one of those guys that that really changes the pace for this offense to kind of keep it fresh. And I think Philly needed that last year so much, but they relied so much on the pass game to be that freshness, and the run game, it seems like they just ran it because it was a play to run, and they were hoping to be mysterious somehow, some way. But nonetheless, it's I'm very curious to see how he's gonna play this year, but I think he's gonna have a hell of a season. I mean, 344 yards in a brand new offense. I think he was traded after week 1. Like that's a lot to pull off. So imagine actually having a full year where you have the offensive playbook under your belt. You know QB1. You know how the offensive line works. A running back a group as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually eclipsed over 500 yards. But let's see.
Yeah, I like it. I was impressed with Tank last year. He showed a burst. I know we were clamoring to see more of Tank Bigsby last season, so I certainly think he is the RB2. And it's pretty much undisputed. I think Will Shipley maybe will be a change of pace back here and there. Maybe some passing downs, maybe if we see some of that. But Barkley and Bigsby could be a good 1-2 punch. We got to figure out a nickname for the Barkley Bigsby, the B&B boys, or something like that. Something catchy. But they have been able to be impressive to say the least. My next breakout is rookie Eli Stowers. I just love this pick. I know he's going to be compared to Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who was taken right after him by the Cleveland Browns. I know a lot of us here at Philly Sports Network and even Eagles fans, they were hoping maybe the Eagles would go safety in that second round to pair with Drew Makuba. But they also have to figure out who's going to be the replacement for Dallas Goedert after this season. So Eli Stowers, just an awesome tight end, first team All-American. I mentioned it numerous times. He won the Mackey Award. And to me, I think if history just repeats himself, then the Eagles just got one of the top tight ends of the future. I mean, Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, these big time tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, Brock Bowers. I mean, these are all legitimate tight ends in the NFL who have won that award, which goes to the best college tight end. And Eli Stowers won that. So not only do you get Mekhi Lemon, who is the best wide receiver in college this past season, you also get the best tight end in college football. And his physical traits, insane. He's 6'3", 239 pounds, but he set tight end combine records in the broad jump, 11 feet 3 inches, vertical jump 45.5 inches. I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field more. I think we're going to see him and Goddard, a lot of twin tight end sets, make it really tough on defenses to figure out what they're doing, and especially if Stowers can improve on his blocking. And from all accounts and what Jordan Matthews said, I don't know if you guys caught the interview on The Athletic, but former Eagles wide receiver Jordan Matthews coached at Vanderbilt last year, and he couldn't stop raving about Eli Stowers. He said that he wants his kids to be like Eli Stowers, and he said, I don't know if I can compliment a person better than that. This kid just has a fantastic head on his shoulders. He's not going to get spooked by anything. He has this authentic leadership and professionalism around him, and he's only a rookie. So I love that about him. I think if you bring in guys like that who have had success at the college level, he played in the SEC, and he has a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't seem to be going zigzagging down the straight and narrow here. He is the straight and narrow. I think that the sky could be the limit for this kid moving forward. And I think he's going to have a really, really nice year. Now, do I think he'll outperform Dallas Goedert? I don't, but knock on wood, Goddard stays healthy because he was all last season for the most part, and we saw what he did last year, setting records in touchdowns for a tight end in the Eagles franchise history. But if he goes down, I think Eli Stowers will be able to pick up the pieces quite quickly.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I think Eli Stowers, like I talked about it throughout the draft process, I thought he was the most eagerly tight end prospect out there. And he just fits in what they want to do by working over the middle of the field underneath routes. And I think his lack of blocking has kind of been overstated. He maintains blocks. He's a willing blocker. He just doesn't have a lot of functional strength, and that's just going to come with age. I mean, if you saw when he was drafted, he looked shockingly young. Like, I mean, he looked like a kid, like somebody who was like 17, 18 years old to me. One of my nieces said that he reminded them of one of the kids from High School Musical. I don't know which one, but I mean, so they thought he looked like a teenager as well. Like he just hasn't, fully developed in some, physicality yet. But one other point about both of their first two selections, and you touched on it with Eli, is they're relying on intel from people they trust, like Jordan Matthews. And with Mekhi Lemon, it was Lincoln Riley, which also is who they leaned on when they made the Jalen Hurts selection when he was at Oklahoma. So I love how they're building their rosters like that. I think it's very smart, and you should utilize all that intel. And I think it's a big reason why they're sitting there with All-Pro Quinyon Mitchell right now, because of Sirianni's relationship with the Toledo head coach as well. But moving to defense, my next breakout was Moro Ajomo, who had quite a good breakout last year. I think he really carved out a really nice role on that defensive front, and I think all of the snaps were becoming more impactful as the season went by, and you could tell Fangio beginning to trust him. His motor and leverage show up just snap after snap, and he started turning pressures and pass rushes into disruption back there. He's no longer just a depth player, but rather a part of the rotation. And the jump from solid rep to impact play just kept happening more and more often as the season went on. And I think this year you'll see that happen from the beginning. He's vastly improved, and with all of the extra snaps. And I think he could take, not to use a guy who just left, but like a Milton Williams type jump, I think is in the cards. I mean, he's in his final season, just like Milton was when he kind of had that breakout, and he might, demand money like that as well, a ransom for his services after the season's gone. And, it's sad when you see people do so well and then move on from Philadelphia. But on the flip side, you're going to get all of that production, and they'll take that trade over and over, especially from a guy who was a 7th round pick, who's suddenly probably going to be cashing in on a $70+ million contract in 9 months.
Do you think there's a world where they could get away with keeping a guy like Ojomo just because he's a homegrown talent? I feel like that thought has been haunting me all off season so far, because he's a hell of a player, and he's a hell of a guy to have in rotation with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Do you see any avenue where the Eagles could pull something off like that?
I mean, I do, because they just desire to have the trenches invested heavily like that. It'll all come down to money, though, because you can't pay Jordan Davis what you did, Jalen Carter even more than that, and throw 50-some million at Moro as well. It just financially just won't work. But the kind of like dart throws that they've taken, like with Ty Robinson thus far, hasn't really worked out. And I think the difference is, and they may have learned their lesson from this, when they selected Ajomo, he was very young. Ty Robinson was very old for that draft. And typically when players have their breakout at age like 24, 25 in college, doesn't usually, travel well to the NFL. But somebody who has yet to reach their peak like Ajomo, you're seeing it happen right in front of your eyes, just how, valuable he can be with proper coaching. So I would bet against it, but I don't think it will be from a lack of effort from them trying.
I'd be very curious to see if they could pull something off like that, because Ojomo's, like I said, he's one of those guys you want to keep in this kind of rotation. So I'm a big fan of him being a breakout player next season as well. I'm gonna kind of jump on Corey's bandwagon and going the rookie avenue. I'm going for Michael Morris, offensive guard. 6'5". He started all 14 games in last season for Georgia. Didn't allow a single sack in pass protection. And it seems like the Eagles dipped their toes back into the Georgia Bulldogs realm because it makes a lot of sense for a player like him to be a part of this offensive line. I feel like Tyler Steen's position is not his to lose. It's just him covering that position at to the time being. Michael Morris seems like a sneaky pick to take over that position. The guy is 6'5". He's to me his floor is a lot higher than a lot of the guys that they have on offensive depth currently. And he seems like that sneaky pick that could just end up in the starting rotation. And I think Eagles fans are going to like him. The great thing about what I really like about him is that he's already trained against NFL style talent, right? He's been in practices against Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. So he has that camaraderie already with the Eagles team, with the players in the team, I mean, on the defensive side. So him just kind of just crafting, continuing to sharpen in his craft and developing here, I think it's going to be one of those sneaky moves where we're finally not going to be worried about the right guard position going forward. That's gonna be my breakout player. I think he's gonna end up being a starter before the end of the season. I think you're on mute. What does that mean?
I can't hear him.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you're on mute. Apologies, Corey's having technical difficulties, and it blew my mind for a second.
I'll speak on Micah while he's trying to work on his mic. Micah arrived at Georgia as an undersized teenager 5 years ago, which is just crazy when you see how physically imposing he is now. And like you mentioned, he reunites with Jordan, and he played with, Carter and Nolan Smith. And all three of them reached out to him after he was drafted, which is just part of that Georgia dog mentality. And his path through Georgia helped shape him. And I think you're seeing how players come out from those types of organizations. He arrived in Athens when he was just 17 years old, and he immediately learned, what SEC football was about because he was going against future NFL players every day in practice. And his game just reflects that explosiveness. He generates movement in the run game, consistently flashes the ability to collapse the interior. And, he may never be an elite lateral mover, but his physical tools and power are just undeniable. So I'm excited to see him as well. And I think you characterized Tyler Steen's position well. Everybody mentions about how many people, they could need to replace on the O-line, and Steen's rarely ever spoken about, but this is his last year as well. So, and he struggled to get that job. He twice lost out. So I'm really excited to see what Micah could do as well.
I think Micah's gonna be a good addition to this offensive line. And it's would you consider Tyler Steen to be a miss for Howie Roseman and his team?
I mean, that sounds a little harsh, but in a way, maybe. I mean, they drafted him, 60 something? I mean, he was a very high draft pick. He was in the third round. He was 70s, 60s. I can't remember who he was selected, but it was high. So I do think the expectation was there for him to take over that job that they eventually gave to Becton. So yeah, I do think that, in some ways, and like I said, it sounds a little harsh because everybody's not going to develop at the same speed. And he was a rookie, and he played tackle as well in college, and he was moving over to guard. So transitioning like that is difficult. So I rarely like to talk about what anybody can't do. I'm more interested in what they can, and I think he proved, after last season. I mean, quite frankly, he was one of the better people on that line last year. So
He was the one that you didn't hear anything about, but it just feels like just because you didn't hear about him doesn't mean he did the job that
no.
you would expect. I think that's the way you can look at it with him.
And he was the healthiest. I mean, quite frankly, so he did perform better. But I do think all these dart throws at all these offensive linemen that you see are with that in mind. I mean, it's at some point they're going to have to pay him a lot of money or let him move on and try to develop somewhere else and wish him the best. But, I do think it'll be a fun battle to watch. I would be surprised just because of how raw Micah is that, he would win the job in camp. But if there's an injury or a lull, I would not be surprised at all if Micah Morris is one of the first ones you see on that line when they need some other bodies.
Well, I'm banking on it because we got flipping the birds money on it, so it needs to happen
Okay.
one way or another. Corey's back, but I think he's still having technical difficulties from what it doesn't sound like. So if you want to, we're almost there.
One pick.
Oh, I don't know if you want to take the pick, David, and we'll see if we can circle back with Corey.
Sure. Yeah. My final one was Dontavian Wicks, and
My favorite one. I'll put that at that.
yeah, and it's definitely a projection because we have no idea what he's going to do on this team. And we, quite frankly, we're all excited about a Sean Mannion offense, but we don't really know what we're going to get yet because we kind of think we know how the offense is going to be, but Kevin Patullo knew exactly what the offense was going to be, and he still struggled with sequencing and play calling like that. So until someone does it, you really don't know what you have. I'm not concerned at all that he's a first-time play caller. I think if you have that talent, you have that talent. But until you show it, you can't really think that it's going to be great, bad, or indifferent. You have to prove it on the field. But I believe he must have proven that in the minds of everybody in the Philadelphia Eagles brass because they're giving him, like we joked last year, they're giving him the keys to the Ferrari because the personnel that he's been given is elite. And if the play calling matches that, they're going to be a very difficult defense. And he brought, I use that as a precursor, he brought Wicks here on purpose. It's intentional. Not only for his on-field play, but he can teach this scheme. He played in it. He was with him. So I think he has a real chance to be a breakout in 2026. The only negative that you'll ever hear about him is his hands. He needs to secure the ball better. But if he does that, man, he brings a lot of good things. He brings a real understanding of leverage and spacing. He brings physicality to the field. He's a willing blocker. And he's being brought in to complement wide receiver 1 and 2 more than challenge or be a backup. And I think that's a big difference in the philosophy that the Eagles are having moving forward this year. Jahan Dotson was basically there in case Smitty, in case Smitty or AJ Brown got hurt. He was an insurance policy. Wicks isn't that. He's being brought in to complement them. He fits what the Eagles want to do in regards to, getting more targets over the middle of the field and underneath routes. And defenses are going to tilt their coverage to the top weapons on the field, which will be Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley. And that should afford Dontavian a lot of opportunities to make an impact. So new Eagles OC Sean Mannion is going to have to emphasize the timing, rhythm concepts more consistently. But if they do, I think Wicks becomes one of Hurts' most trusted chain movers on that field.
And I think it was trending somewhere. A wide receiver skills coach mentioned that he couldn't believe that the Packers traded away Wicks because his ceiling his potential is incredibly high, and they had not tapped into it yet. And he even called it a mistake for the Packers to trade him. I've really been excited, and I expressed this a lot to you so far past couple of weeks that I'm really excited about him being in this offense, just because I feel like he's being vastly overlooked, and he's a player that I feel like can really impact the team because, like you mentioned, we're seeing a different offense. Like the offense is not going to be what it was with Kevin Patullo. It's not going to be solely predicated on AJ and Devontae. It's going to be about moving the ball, moving and change and making things happen, which I feel like it's going to be one of those seasons where Jalen Hurts and this offense actually punches the league in the mouth and shuts up the critics. Now we need to know if they've already started that because somebody shut off Corey's mic and we're hoping that it's working now. No.
You got me?
We do. You're back.
Dude, I literally was sitting here the entire time, not touching the microphone. And you're like, oh, you're on mute. I'm like, no, I'm not. I haven't touched the mic since we started this show.
It blew my mind because I'm like, wait, am I on mute?
I got a new
Technology's fun.
laptop a couple weeks ago, and there's something that I don't know if the USB port doesn't play nice with my mic, but there's like a setting that gets knocked off, and I have to like unmute the mic within my microphone settings. I'm like, unless there's a button on my keyboard that is like a shortcut to do that, maybe I bumped, but anyway,
back
my
now.
breakout is Nolan Smith, the edge rusher from Georgia, if you didn't know. I just think this is kind of like a put up or shut up year, if you will, for Nolan Smith, for lack of a better term. I know they picked up the option, a little over $13 million for him. It was great a couple years ago, right? Helping the Eagles win that Super Bowl in 2024. Banged up with the injuries, that tricep issue kind of came back. And when he's on top of his game, he could be a really disruptive force on the edge, but just hasn't been at a consistent rate. And you wonder how much longer the Eagles will keep him around. Obviously, they picked up the option because it made the most sense, but I think he's kind of playing for a deal. Maybe not even with the Eagles, but elsewhere, where in a year or two they could be like, hey, like, yeah, we see this. You were a late bloomer. We're going to take care of you. We trust you. Or maybe another team will swoop in and say, hey, like, we like what we saw. Come over here. So Nolan Smith to me will be key to help with the pass rush. Obviously, Jonathan Grenard has been a great addition to help. I think he's going to be really fun to watch. So I think it might take some pressure off of Nolan Smith, but I think Smith just has to somehow get back to A, being healthy, and B, getting back to that 2024 status where he was a wrecking ball.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that a second, I agree with everything you said. If he gets past the injury bug and just becomes more consistent, high-level production is going to follow. I think we all saw that, like you alluded to, in that 2024 Super Bowl postseason. He led the Eagles in sacks. I think he had 4 of them in that postseason, which was an all-time franchise record. And Smith's speed off the edge just changes the math for offenses. They have to account for him. He's still putting it all together, but the burst and effort are undeniable every snap. I mean, he is just nonstop motor. So I'm really excited. And you also alluded to Jonathan Grenard, kind of taking some of the pressure off. I think he absolutely is. I think Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith on the other side are 100% going to benefit from Grenard across the field there. And just a little bit on Grenard, we briefly talked about him, but had that deal been done like right after free agency, like sometime in March, Eagles fan base would have exploded if they had dove into this guy and just looked at how big of a deal it really is bringing him over. But the fact that it happened on day 2 of the NFL draft, it kind of got hidden with Stowers and Markel Bell. It kind of just got all thrown into the wash. He didn't really get his own separate due, so to speak. But if you look at that as just a move and don't include it as part of the draft, I mean, he's as big as an impactful addition as Jalen Phillips was last season. I mean, this guy is just a pressure generator, and I'm really excited about the edge rushers. And I agree with Corey that Nolan could have a real big breakout because he might not face as many double teams and such that he has in the past. I think you saw again like what he can do in 2024 when he's completely healthy, which was something he kind of struggled with last season.
Nolan Smith was at the time, I was big on the Eagles selecting Nolan Smith as opposed to Jalen Carter because I didn't think Jalen Carter was within reach for them until they finally traded up. But Smith, I feel like he was the perfect trade-off from Hassan Reddick to a young guy. He mirrored everything Reddick was able to do. And I personally felt like that was his ceiling. He's gonna be that guy. But like you mentioned, like injuries have slowed him down. It's taken a while to get the motor started at times. And Jalix Hunt has just taken advantage of all those opportunities. I'm hoping that Nolan does peak out this year. He does show up and show out. And I hope they could keep this Georgia Bulldogs defensive line together for a longer period of time. Obviously, the money's not mine. I mean, if the money was mine, I would, I would have hair probably. But nonetheless, like I do hope they find a way to keep that equation together because it just makes the math makes too much sense for them to stay together. But those are our guys. I mean, listen, I'll be honest. If I could pick from from your guys, I love the idea of the Dontavian Wicks breaking out. I love Eli Stowers too because I feel like it'd be the perfect welcoming party for the Eagles. I mean, getting an elite tight end in the second round because a lot of people feel like he was probably the best tight end in the draft. But yeah, now I can't get out of this picture. There we go.
We side topic on
Oh,
Twitter.
we have any
There's
housekeeping items. There you go.
housekeeping, sure. A leak possibly on Twitter. NFL Nerd, 50-some thousand followers, tweeted out that the Eagles are playing Jacksonville in London. Week 5, October 11th.
That's a Liam game.
That sucks.
That would be a Liam game.
I was planning to go to that game in Jacksonville. That's terrible.
Oh crap! Yeah.
I was looking for a little vacation, St. Augustine, Jacksonville beaches. Terrible.
So it's not confirmed, but NFL Nerd, if I remember correctly, he was on some games last year. He's tweeting a lot of stuff out already. He's got the Steelers going to the Saints for the inaugural Paris game. He's got the Week 1 Monday Night Football game being Denver and Kansas City. Bengals and Falcons, the Spain game. So it's the NFL schedule release show, which is on Thursday at 8 o'clock on NFL Network, is basically pointless, I feel like, because all the reporters and those out there that kind of have the leaks are going to just spill the beans before the show.
It's kind of like having a draft live. Like the draft live doesn't even matter anymore because you guys you have Ari, you have Adam, you have Ian who's just leaking everything left and right. But David, you could come to Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I would love to. I've been there a couple of times. I like that stadium. It's easy to get in and out of, I think. And Clearwater is probably one of my favorite places in the United States. Absolutely love it.
I just went there last. Well, if anybody from my job is watching, I did not go there last Monday. It was not phenomenal, and it was not beautiful water. I don't know what anybody's talking about, but yes, it was not a great place. But nonetheless, it's I would love to. If you do come to Tampa, let's link up. We'll make something happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Just gonna go to Tampa to go to Tampa.
I'd go to Tampa to go to Clearwater, but
yeah, I mean Tampa's in the way. The best way to put it.
I like Tampa; it's a nice city, but I love Clearwater.
I like the drive into Clearwater. You just feel like you're leaving somewhere to go somewhere freaking tropical.
The wife and I are trying to get down to Key West.
I've heard that the Keys are pretty damn nice.
Yeah, I like Key West too. Very different vibe though.
I don't want to know what that means because there's a lot of cities and towns out here that have very, very different vibes.
It's just a different vibe. Like Clearwater has tons of beaches. Key West has hardly any beaches. Like they're very limited.
Yeah, there's only a couple of beaches, but a lot of like dive bars, restaurants.
Yeah, live music everywhere you go. Clearwater is more, a little different. They got the sunset thing in Clearwater where it's kind of not a big draw, but what's the place called? Mallory Square, I think, in Key West. That's a huge draw. Every night at sunset, there's 1,000 people out on that square, if not 2,000. I mean, it's just a totally different vibe. They're just really laid back people, and their lifestyle is completely different, I guess, because they live basically 200 miles off the coast of the United States, basically 125, whatever it is.
Should we just host an Eagles podcast out there live right in the middle?
Yeah, I think that would be phenomenal. Courtesy of PSN paying for all of us.
Yeah, PSN's got the airfare mileage.
Yeah, I'll even let Liam keep all the air miles. Just get me there. He can have all the rewards.
But nonetheless, one more glance at our breakout players. We'll be back next Tuesday to kind of go more thoroughly into things and into the weeds of what to expect with training camp on the horizon, and even possibly a schedule breakdown with the schedule release happening on Thursday. But until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Naito. Taco Tuesday, niece. And we'll see you guys next week. Go Birds.
Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds.